Hi, everybody. Welcome to our new course here on just our little introduction to Tibetan Buddhism and the Gelugpa tradition. And this course will be over a number of classes on Mahamudra, or of course, where we're presenting, doing some practice and study on the emptiness of the mind. So in other words, in terms of the practice of the mind itself, meditating on itself, meditating on the emptiness of itself. So today, this class is just going to be on a little bit of an introduction to this. Some of the issues will be presented with throughout this course. In particular, I'd like to look at more what they call, rather than shamatha, the just focusing on issues around the concentration aspect of meditation. The replacement meditation on the emptiness of the mind. That can come a little later, for instance, and we can always do this just on our own time. This will be what they call superior seeing, or a vipassana, or sort of a more analytical meditation, looking at, I guess, sort of more, wouldn't say theory, but just a lot of the philosophical issues that we have to examine around the emptiness of the mind. And once we have that as a picture, then we can meditate on it. So we should be sort of applying our shamatha, or concentration practice, as it is. And then once we have that sort of very stabilized mind of tranquil abiding, we can look at the picture, or the image of what we're meditating on, sort of the generic image, so to speak, of emptiness, in particular the emptiness of the mind. So here we go. Just will be a little bit of a shorter class today. I'm just almost on the way to work. I'm just here in Osaka, Japan, and then just on the way back home to Vancouver. So it's first sort of recording for this course, and I'll do another class soon as well. Okay, so just starting with the Heart Sutra here. Homage to Perfection Wisdom, the Blessed Mother. Thus I have heard at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgir and Mass Vulture's Mountain, together a great assembly of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. That time also Superior Valkshara, the bodhisattva of the great beings, looking perfectly depressed of profound perfection wisdom, looking perfectly also at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. And through the power of Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said, Superior Valkshara, the bodhisattva of the great being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage the practice of profound perfection wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Superior Valkshara, the bodhisattva of the great being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly also the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence, form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, and form is not other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, this all phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics. They are not produced and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so forth, up to no mentality element, and also up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death, and no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there's no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there's no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing under and beyond perversity, they attain their final nirvana. Also, all Buddhas reside perfectly in the three times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest, complete Buddhas in state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal to the unequaled mantra, the mantra that really pacifies all suffering, since it's not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is proclaimed, Tayatam Gata Gata Paragata Parasam Gati Bodhiso. Shariputra, bodhisattva, great being, should train the profound perfection of wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration, said to Superior Valkshara, the bodhisattva, the great being, that he'd spoken well. Good Gano-san, just like that. Since it's like that, just as you have revealed in that way, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, the Superior Valkshara, the bodhisattva, the great being, the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. Okay, so just taking a moment now to do a little bit of a meditation to bless our minds here before we go into the class. So we can visualize ourselves seated in a wide open space, the ground like blue lapis lazuli, sort of easy and soft to sit on. And we're surrounded by all sentient beings with 6 realms of cyclic existence: mother on our left, father on our right, people we love the most behind us as support, and people we like the least or have issues with in front of us as objects of our compassion, love, and meditation. And moving outward from there, humans from all over the world, all different places and backgrounds, all different living natural beings in the animal realm. The whole spirit world is here, from all the different intermediate states, bardo states, astral realm, ethereal realm, elemental realms, and so forth. Celestial beings like demigods and gods, and countless beings in lower states of rebirth, hungry ghosts and hell beings. All of us here is one sort of family meditating together. Now, beautiful blue sky like a dome above us. And in it, just above us and in front of us, we're seeing, sort of visualizing, sort of witnessing a vision of Tashita Pure Land. Of all the sort of countless angelic beings, and Pure Land of all the universal Buddhas are by the time of the 4th universal Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, and soon to be in the time of the 5th universal Buddha, Buddha of love and kindness, Maitreya. And also the Pure Land of the Buddha of wisdom, Manjushri. So we can visualize this beautiful world, sort of natural world, very, very pristine and pure. And then just sort of a little, almost like a little university town of all temples and shrines and so forth, monastic institutions, places. And we can think of bodhisattvas, monks, nuns, yogis, yoginis, everybody, and different devas and angels here meditating, practicing. In the center, and beautiful sort of cathedral, we're visualizing the 5th universal Buddha, Buddha Maitreya, who's got a golden energy body with a crown holding 2 white lotuses, one with a golden initiation vase on, the other with the 8-spoked Dharma wheel or chakra. And again, just beautiful, wearing the robes, royal robes, and a crown, seated in the throne, like he's in a chair about to get up and sort of come down into this world to turn the wheel of Dharma. And we can visualize that his heart, now they always say there's sort of like a golden eternal knot symbol that becomes beautiful white clouds. And on it is the founder of our tradition, Tsongkhapa tradition, Ganden or Gelugpa tradition, Tsongkhapa Tsongkhapa. The way we usually visualize him, beautiful monk, Tibetan monk on a lion throne, multicolored lotus, sun and moon seat, and moon sun seat, saying he's seated and in lotus position, and his hands are in the turn of the wheel of Dharma Mudra, holding 2 white lotuses that blossom around the ears, and wearing 3 robes of monk and yellow pennant's hat. He has, on the left lotus is the Prajnaparamita text in 100,000 lines, and then the right lotus has a flaming sword. And then below him are his 2 heart students, Chopa Gyatso and Kedrupje. Chopa Gyatso is in front, and on our left are his Tsongkhapa's right. In lowest position, he robes monk, yellow pennant's hat, and he's got in his right hand a little teaching mudra at his heart, and a little Dharma text in his left hand in his lap. In the same form is Kedrupje on our right, or Tsongkhapa's left. And we can also visualize at Tsongkhapa's heart, the Buddha of Manjushri, Buddha wisdom Manjushri, showing that he's an emanation Manjushri. And so the Manjushri golden body, beautiful silks and so forth, the crown, and he's in lotus position. He's holding threatening mudra, a flaming sword in his right hand above his head. Left hand's at his heart and 3 jewels mudra, and holding a white lotus on his left. Sort of opens on his left shoulder with the Prajnaparamita text, 100,000 lines. And taking refuge in them, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha to attain enlightenment. Let the spirit accumulate from practicing generosity and the perfections, maintain enlightenment on the benefit of all sentient beings. I take refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha until I attain enlightenment. By the merit accumulating from practicing generosity of the perfections, maintain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. By the merit accumulating by practicing generosity of the perfections, maintain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all beings have happiness in its causes. May all beings be free from suffering in its causes. May all beings constantly dwell in joy, transcending sorrow. May all beings dwell in equal love for both those close and distant. May all beings have happiness in its causes. May all beings be free from suffering in its causes. May all beings constantly dwell in joy, transcending sorrow. May all beings dwell in equal love for both those close and distant. May all beings have happiness in its causes. May all beings be free of suffering in its causes. May all beings constantly dwell in joy, transcending sorrow. May all beings dwell in equal love for both those close and distant. So generating love, compassion, joy, and equanimity here in your hearts. And as we recite this, just like rolling out sort of a carpet or a yoga mat towards us, the clouds start to unfold, bringing Tsongkhapa and his two students in the sky above us. So just from Maitreya's heart, all low clouds are coming down from the sheet of Pure Land, sort of bringing forth our gurus closest to us to give us energy, inspiration, blessings. From the heart of the protector, the hundreds of deities of the joyful land, to the peak of the clouds, like a cluster of fresh white curd. All-knowing Tsongkhapa, King of the Dharma, please come to this place together with your two chief disciples. Space before me in lion throne, lotus and moon, the venerable Guru smile with delight. Supreme field of merit from my mind of faith. Please remain for 100 aeons to spread the teachings. Your minds of wisdom realizes the full extent of objects of knowledge. Your eloquent speech is the ear ornament of the fortunate. Your beautiful bodies are blades of the glory of renown. I prostrate to you, whom to see, to hear, and remember so meaningful. Pleasing water offerings, various flowers, sweet-smelling incense, lights, scented water, and so forth. A vast cloud of offerings both set out and imagined, and offer to you, supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtues of body, speech, and mind have accumulated time without beginning, especially transgressions of my 3 levels of vows, with great remorse I declare each one from the depths of my heart. In this degenerate age, you still for much learning and accomplishment, abandon the 8 worldly concerns, you make your leisure and endowment meaningful. Protect her from the very depths of my heart, and rejoice in the great wave of your deeds. From billowy clouds of wisdom and compassion, the space of your enlightened minds, venerable holy gurus, please send down a rain of vast, profound Dharma, appropriate disciples of this world. May your Vajra body, created from the purity of clear light, free of the rising setting of cyclic resistance, but visible to the ordinary viewer only in its unsubtle physical form, stand unchanging without waning till samsara ends. Through the virtues I've accumulated here, may the teachings and all living beings receive every benefit, especially in the essence of the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa shine forever. This mandala is built with a base resplendent with flower, saffron, water, and incense, adorned with Mount Mirror, the 4 lands, sun, and moon. By offering this pure mandala to you, assembly of Buddhas here, visualized here before me, may all living beings experience pure happiness and be reborn in pure lands. The objects of my desire, aversion, and ignorance, friend, enemy, and stranger in my body and all possessions, these I offer without clinging for your enjoyment. Please bless me and all living beings to be released from the 3 poisonous minds. So holding at our hearts here, the purified universe of all beautiful things, we're offering to Tsongkhapa and his 2 students, to Buddha Maitreya, and all holy beings. This is selfless generosity of an open heart we're offering all beautiful things. We send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious gurus. Om Edam Guru Anam Mandalakam Nirtiyami. Now, like sunlight coming down, golden light as blessing, as we recite the long mantra of Tsongkhapa. You are Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of unimaginable compassion. Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom. Vajrapani, lord of the secret, destroyer of the hordes of Mars without exception. Tsongkhapa, crown jewel, the sage of the land of snows. Tsongkhapa, I make request at your Buddha's feet. And in Tibetan, Speak me say waiter chen chen razy. Dream ken pe wong po jam bao. Du pung ma lu chom se sang wei dan. An chen ke pe sun kien song ka ban. Lo sang tra pe sha bla so wan den. Mig me se wei ter chen chen rei zi. Dri me kien bei wang po cham pao yang. Du pung ma lu zhong se sang wei deng. Gan chen ke pei sun kian song ka pao. Lo sang tra pe sha bla so wan de. Mig me se wei che chen chen rei zi. Pri me kien pe wang po jam bao yang. Du pung ma lu zhong se sang wei dan. Gan chen ke pe sun kian song ka pan. Lo sang dra pe sha bla so wan de. It's like golden sunlight coming into us here, warm and luminous. Yes, please grant us your blessings, Tsongkhapa, and your True's heart suns here. Blessings of your body, speech, and mind. So we can just visualize at our heart now, a little tiny, about the size of a quarter or so, 8-petaled white lotus with a white moon disc on top. So to visualize it, the sheet of pure land starts to melt in the golden light and dissolve into Buddha Maitreya. And he melts into light, so it becomes like almost like the sun coming forward, sucking up all the clouds, dissolving into Tsongkhapa. And Japagyatso and Kejupje just sort of melt into light to like little suns, balls of golden light, dissolve into Tsongkhapa. So it's get really, really small, size of a sunflower seed or so, like a little gold nugget in the sky. It's like these verses here. Glorious precious fruit guru, please come to the lotus moon seat my crown. In your great kindness, please remain with me. Bestow upon me the blessings of your body, speech, and mind. Glorious and precious root guru, please ascend to the lotus and moon seat of my heart. And in your great kindness, remain with me. Please grant me the calm and supreme realizations. Glorious precious root guru, please remain in the lotus and moon seat of my heart. In your great kindness, please remain with me and remain until I achieve the essence of enlightenment. Tsongkhapa comes to the crown of our head, slowly descends to our heart, just in front of our spine, coming to rest on the moon disc, center of the lotus, and the lotus starts to close. And as it closes, we can just feel that it disappears. It sort of like melts, like when you drop sort of a piece of butter onto a hot frying pan there, just sort of instantly melts. Golden light into our heart. And all the power of the three Buddhas that Tsongkhapa is the manifestation of: Buddha of compassion, Avalokiteshvara, Buddha of wisdom and Jishri, and Buddha of power, Vajrapani. All those sort of qualities go directly into us. It's enlightened mind mixing with ours. We feel great, great joy and bliss at this point. So just meditation now. It's the blessings of Tsongkhapa and all the Buddhas. Okay, so today's just going to be a short class. I think I'd like to, when I was in university, seems like a million years ago, studying philosophy, I think it was in my second year, I did a course on philosophical anthropology, and we studied the teacher that I had, professor, was really into, at that time, famous sort of media guru or sort of philosopher from Canada, from University of Toronto, Marshall McLuhan, who famously came up with the term the global village, to describe our sort of late 20th century sort of technological and digitally interconnected world. That is just, it's sort of like a cliche we all use, but he was a lot like some Greek philosophers or people like Schopenhauer and Nietzsche or something, in the sense that he wrote in aphorisms a lot of his work, and they were just amazing. He called them probes, thought probes, in a sense, they're just kind of almost like little Zen koans or something. So I like, sometimes the classes here on Mahamudra, I'd like to sort of make them a little shorter and just have it almost like a koan or an idea or a concept, that an image or picture that we can work with that sort of stimulates spiritual growth, I guess you could say, or just, gets you thinking or working with sort of problematic, so to speak, on Mahamudra, or on emptiness of the mind. So today, just as sort of a very short introduction to our Mahamudra course, I'd like to do that. So we'll just start as an introduction, just sort of an insight on the nature of the mind and karma in particular. And yeah, those two things, nature of the mind and its emptiness, you should say, we can say, and its connection, sort of the ultimate truth of the mind being its empty quality, but also its conventional nature, being clear and cognizant, but also in a lot of ways being a theater of karma, karma being experiential events, that things, that events appear to you, to your mind. That they are produced causally through your actions, as a result of your actions, karma being, definition being, movement of the mind, causal movement of the mind. So famous philosopher David Hume said that in his treatise on human nature, which is a classic book, of course, he said, as an image of the mind, of course, this is in the late 17th century, he's, hasn't got too much to work on compared to now in terms of analogies, but he said the mind is like a theater where you've got the stage, you've got different actors coming costumes in different sets, coming, different dramas and stories coming and going. But he said the thing is that this would be a theater and a stage without a theater and a stage, so to speak, a theater that's nowhere and nothing. So almost like the theater in some kind of maybe sort of open set, in the sense that like you're performing a play in the middle of a field or something. So whereas like if you're in an empty field and there's people watching, an audience, how would, the sets maybe it's by make believe or just changing clothes or costumes a little bit, but no, there wouldn't be anything like a building, like a theater, or anything like an actual stage that you would be on. Now then Hume also says, cut out the idea of an audience too. So it's not like anyone's watching. There's no self watching this, or no self like as an audience like present for this. And then you got something closer to the mind. So that's kind of what the excellent analogy still holds. Absolutely amazing, very, very Buddhist analogy from David Hume. So we've got two main schools here, the two great schools on emptiness, from the famous Buddhist saint Arya Nagarjuna, predicted by Buddha Shakyamuni, who founded the Middle Way or Madhyamika school, and then the other great saint predicted by Buddha Shakyamuni, Arya Sangha. He said, after I die, centuries later, going to be these two great saints, and Nagarjuna and Sangha, that reestablished my doctrine of the Mahayana. And this is, in the case of Arya Sangha, his school being the mind-only school, also known as Yogacara or Chittamantra. So both of them have an idea of the mind, both of them have an idea of karma, and by looking at them together, comparing and contrasting, we can have a very, very subtle understanding of emptiness of the mind, or Mahamudra. In particular, we want to look at how Nagarjuna's Madhyamika school critiques, or sort of follows through, or thinks, or sort of works from Asanga's Chittamantra school. So where, even though a lot of the Chittamantra yoga historically came first, a lot of the Madhyamika critique follows from, you could sort of apply it to the Chittamantra school and come up with even deeper conclusions about the emptiness of the mind. And how they do that is, of course, by looking at the nature of conventional reality, or looking at karma. So what we have, of course, as you know, from the Chittamantra school, we have an idea of that you've got minds and their objects coming and going, that from a single karmic seed or energy, you produce an experiential event that you can sort of divide into consciousness engaging or knowing a particular object, which is why definition of mind is object possessor, that consciousness is intentional, or it has a relationship to something that is not itself. So it has an object. You don't get mind without an object. You don't get an object without a mind. But nevertheless, what the mind-only school says, that the place for these mental seeds that create the karma of having mind and their objects reside, or are kept, or are founded by, or grounded by, so to speak, is a deeper layer of mind called a laya vijnana, or foundational, or quote unquote storehouse consciousness. All these individual minds' experiences are coming and going. They're produced by karmic seeds. How are those karmic seeds grounded? Where do they reside? What's their ontological status? Basically, within a deeper mind, what you call the eightfold consciousness. You've got six sense consciousnesses of five senses. Obviously, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, and seeing. And then mental consciousness of knowing, sort of mental objects, your imagination, being six. Then the seventh consciousness would be what they call aklista manas, or your deluded consciousness, which doesn't, the whole point is this ignorant consciousness, which doesn't exist, it's almost like an optical illusion, is the deluded nature of mind that doesn't know this whole process is happening, or doesn't know that objects are just produced by the mind. It dualistically thinks that there is a mind in a world completely separate from one another, just arising spontaneously without any kind of causal interaction. Doesn't see that that world and mind are coming from these mental seeds, or backtracks, or imprints. That's the sevenfold consciousness, that once you meditate see emptiness, it sort of quote, disappears, or is purified, or whatever, because it's never been there in the first place, sort of diluted consciousness. The eightfold foundational consciousness, or Buddha mind, whatever you want to say, is in Tibetan Kushi, or Alaya Vijnana, is the basis of all reality. It is the place, foundational consciousness, storehouse consciousness of all these mental seeds, or this process. It's like the big mirror on which all these sort of, the theater of the mind is projected. So the Madhyamika school denies this. Nagarjuna school, with its great interpreters, Arya Deva, Buddhapalita, and Chandrakirti, and then all the later Tibetan great thinkers like Tsongkhapa, Tisha, and so forth, follow Nagarjuna's lead in denying that there's nothing that could be sort of foundational in anything. There's no foundation. A foundation would mean that it's unrelated to something else. It has to stand apart to ground it, which means it wouldn't be empty, it would be inherently existing. So the Madhyamika school denies this eightfold consciousness, this storehouse consciousness. So it says if there is no foundational consciousness, or Kushi or Laya Vijnana, then the question is, where are these mental seeds that produce mind and its objects, these experiential events? The sevenfold consciousness in the mind-only school holds them as a mirror, sort of it self-grasps at that and self-cherishes and produces this sort of diluted idea of I from this. So the question of where are all these seeds anchored in the Chittamantra school, Yogacara school, mind-only school, it's in the eightfold consciousness. This is denied by the Madhyamika school. So where are these seeds? How does this kind of work? Is my notes here. What we say in the Madhyamika school is that the base, which is staying in mental seeds, is exactly that which is that you focus on with your natural awareness of yourself and call me. Me is something that results from a label and being applied to consciousness, goes on the stream of mind or consciousness. This is stained by mental seeds, particular occasions. That was thing. In other words, we don't need, from a Madhyamika perspective, an eightfold consciousness to contain these mental seeds. Just the regular sixth mental consciousness is enough. Your regular everyday mind, not some Buddha mind or anything sort of over and above this, is enough to have basically the surface on which these karmic events happen. Okay. Yeah, so it says the thing which tends to stop and yet still sustain and then continue on the flow of the mind, mental seeds, which is continuing to habit, root, or a back chat. So it says that once you start to meditate on this, that there's only the mind itself, not any eightfold consciousness that contains the seeds. There's no foundation or container seeds except for the me that is the basis for the seeds. So, okay, so it's kind of interesting. The Madhyamikas, deed or karma is a mental seed. They assert that entities have no natural inherent existence. They do not assert a foundational consciousness. So where does karma work then? Okay, so basically, I'll just sort of read a couple a little bit more and sort of give an extrapolation of this here. So, okay, so the Madhyamikas say that all lower schools, so the Chittamantrid school, the Sautrantika and Vaibhashika school, that karma works even though actions or concepts may be separated by time. So the problem is if karma stays around for a time period, then it is unchanging. But then an unchanging thing cannot give rise to an effect or consequences. So anything that causes, so in other words, karma wouldn't work in this case. So when a deed is completed, the energy must be stored somewhere. Some say that there must be a foundational consciousness or something which is unchanging, but this isn't mental or physical. It has to be separate from the deed. Some other people say there's an idea of a stream of mind is stained with mental seeds of the deed. Therefore, the deed can produce the effect by long after the deed is over, after a long period of time. The mental seed continues on in a stream of similar form until it produces a consequence. So the consequence of the original karma is something produced independently by a medium of like a separate mind, so to speak. So Madhyamikas say the deed or karma isn't something that arises in and of itself, isn't something which finishes through any nature of its own. It is not a contradiction, therefore, to say that something which never finishes through any nature of its own can still produce a consequence. Therefore, consequences come from the deed without foundational consciousness or some external principle. These karmas then can cease in a mental continuum, yet produce effects far into the future without confusion. The lower schools, their theories of karma come up with an answer based on the idea that a deed has a beginning and an end that exists by definition, whereas as a Madhyamika, we deny a beginning or ending or a deed that occurs through any nature of its own. Nagarjuna says that because karma never begins, has no nature of its own, and since it has never had an inherent beginning, neither can it simply go away. Therefore, karma can never end by any nature of its own. It's illogical to think that it goes away. Karma's causes have effects, and effects have causes. Okay, blah, blah, blah. What's that long explanation say? I just wanted to sort of leave this sort of as an image for us to work on here. And this is, of course, if we have causes, this is the whole thing, as Nagarjuna says, the problem with karma is that there necessarily has to be not just a logical but ontological gap between a cause and its effect. They can't be simultaneous. Causes are only causes insofar as they create an effect or an outcome or a consequence. That's what makes them a cause. They have to have an effect. You can't have a cause without an effect, and you can't have an effect without a cause. There's no such thing as a cause without an effect without a cause. So what we're talking about basically is that there's always a relationship of causes and effects. Once you get one, you necessarily have to have the other. If you have the other, necessarily you have to have the preceding cause to create it in this long interconnected chain. But the problem is that because one follows the other and that there's a time gap, it looks like they're not connected, because things have to arise according to causes and conditions. For once a cause is produced, you have to have the right conditions for it to ripen into its effect, sort of go over into the effect. And because that can take time, our ignorant mind, which thinks that things are substantial and unrelated due to sort of our primordial ignorance, separates these two things, causes and effects, doesn't see them as being connected. And then that's why we suffer. That's why we create, bad seeds that produce bad effects rather than producing good seeds that produce good effects, is because we don't see the logical connection of karma, of causes and their effects. So the thing is that once causes are created through our actions and then ripen into experiences which we act within our experience, the effects of the consequences of our actions are in our experience, but because there's a time gap, the issue is where once we create an effect, create a cause, it's sort of held as an energy before it ripens into an effect. So where in the meantime is this cause, this seed, where is it held? In the mind-only school, well, it has to be held in an eightfold consciousness, almost like a little bucket that you drop a marble in, so to speak. And until the conditions allow it to ripen, it's just there. But this, again, what the Madhyamikas say is that this whole image as a picture is wrong because it believes that somehow the seed itself or the cause or the effect are inherently existing. There is something unrelated to something else. So because there's something like a substantial thing, then they have to be found in a certain time and place, that they have to be somewhere, right? And so where are they? It's a big question. How does karma continue? How does it sort of happen? So either it's in the lay of vijnana or somehow it has to be even in a stream of mind, connected, almost like an oil slick follow, like on a puddle of water or something like that. But again, the problem precisely we have in this is that we're thinking karma or cause and effects are some kind of thing inherently existing outside of a causal network. But once we get to the idea, if we meditate on the emptiness of causality, which is the sort of archetypal image of emptiness, like of relationships itself. Causality is the perfect example of relationship. In other words, of something being other than itself, not being inherently contained within itself, but being sort of connected to other things. Once that's the case, you start to see the emptiness of causality. And if we understand karma to be the movement of the mind, the causal movement of the mind, then we see, like in Nagarjuna, is that there's no such thing as an inherently existing cause or inherently existing effect, an inherently existing time or outcome or all these things. So things don't inherently begin, nor do they inherently end, right? They're all interconnected, sort of as a virtual flow, so to speak. Then they don't have to be anywhere, because technically there's no inherently existing time or place either. It's all one interconnected virtual display. That is the nature of the mind. The mind is just, that's why we say that, like, it's clear in cognizing, it's clear that the mind has no nature. Like Aristotle says, it is nothing before it thinks. They say is a passive mind. Aristotle says is something passive. It's just like clear wax that takes the imprint of something or a picture. And as active or knowing something, it's just light. It's just the luminosity that allows things to present themselves in and of themselves as they are. So mind isn't anywhere. So karma isn't anywhere either, because they're both empty. So they don't have to be held anywhere. They don't have to be held in some kind of a location. So if that's the case, it's just like we have here, lower schools, like all three lower schools, the Vaibhashika, in the Sutric Satrantika schools, and in the Chittamantra Yogacara school, come up with their answer based on the idea that a deed has a beginning and ending that exists by definition or inherently, whereas we deny a beginning or ending of a deed that occurs through any nature of its own. Nagarjuna says, because karma never begins, it has no nature of its own. Since it has never even began, neither can it simply go away. You see, so even if we idea that, well, karma doesn't work because, how can something that happened long after I'm dead, like in another lifetime? Well, it's never begun, so it never ends either. It's sort of in a virtual in-between. So it can happen, it can produce things. Causes can produce effects that way. Like I remember, Buddhist scholar Stephen Basher was like, how do these things continue? These backjacks or imprints life to life. How, if everything's ending, everything's impermanent, how can karma continue on to the next life then? But that's the whole point, is that nothing begins or nothing ends. All we know is that if causes are created, actions are created, they have to produce a result. just by its very nature. They don't inherently end and don't inherently begin. All these things, it's all interrelated. It's sort of a vast virtual play of energy, so to speak. So karma can never end by any nature of its own. Therefore, it's illogical to think that it goes away. Causes have effects and effects have causes. Okay, so now where I want to end on this as a little thought probe or this, what does this say about the emptiness of the mind? What does this say about Mahamudra or Great Seal or sort of the great sign, which is the great sign being that all things are empty? In particular, all things come from the mind, all things are experiences sort of in our sort of big existential theater of our life. What does it mean for these things to exist virtually? What does it mean for all things to be empty? What does it mean for the mind to be empty with this? Where are things? What is the nature of the mind? If everything is just a virtual event, what is the virtuality of the mind? Why is this such an important thing to discover? Why is this a sort of the therapeutic medicine that we need? So I just really want you to think about this. Like when we start to see basically the virtuality or sort of dreamlike nature of all things or minds, just by looking at this nature of how back checks work or imprints work or causes and effects in your mind work. It sort of shows the mind itself just to be a virtual creation. Why is this important? Again, because on a day-to-day basis, we don't see the mind this way. We don't see the self this way. We don't see that things are like a dream. We think everything's real, especially ourselves. And then us real is like in German, the word for object is Gegenstand, which means stand against something that it's, I remember my teacher saying that it's like if you close your eyes and you bump into something, something appears to you, like a shutter. It's almost like our regular diluted way of looking things is like that with them, how we consider ourselves and how we consider our mind. Is it's just dualistically things are sort of popping up against us, when really the dreamlike nature mind is everything is one because everything is empty. So what are the ethical consequences for this? How do we treat other people? How do we treat ourselves? What's the therapeutic consequence of for this in terms of healing? What's the pragmatic consequence of this? In other words, if everything is created by the mind, what's possible then, right? This is where the philosopher Spinoza says, no one knows what the body can do. No one knows the sheer creative potential of all things if they're empty. So let's just end it on there. It's just like a short introduction to Mahamudra. So think more about this. Take that Yogacara model that everything is the nature of the mind, and now cut through it where we don't think the mind is anything substantial, or that alaya vijnana or storehouse conscious, we cut through that all the way. That's an indivisible remainder is cut away. It just sort of divides all the way through to the bottom with emptiness. What's left? What does the world look like? The sort of negative Madhyamika critique sort of goes like a universal acid, dissolving everything down to the bottom, but then bouncing a ball on the way up. What's the creative potential for this? What's the healing therapeutic potential for this? And we start to see the power of meditating on the emptiness of the mind, or Mahamudra. Okay, let's just take a moment with that. Just dedicate this. That's our little koan to work with for the week here. May we always, the blessings of all holy beings and all of our gurus, the truth of karma, our causes and their effects, the power of our pure spirit intention, bodhicitta, that everything we do may be cause for the enlightenment of all beings. May all of our dharma wishes be fulfilled, all sentient beings reach enlightenment. May we all through our practice and power here see the emptiness of all things. Okay, lots of love, and we'll see you next time.